Hello, this is going to be the second in my commentary series for Unquenchable Thirst, Fury Warrior. I think it's important that when I show these fights, I at least give you an idea of what the gear level of the person is I'm fighting and their experience when it's applicable, if they have some experience. And this isn't to say, well, look at who I beat. It's more to say that this player that I fought here is not a horrible player, right? I'm not saying this is the best player. I talked about this last time. You don't run across the best of the best in the casual battlegrounds. But I want to make sure that the people that I put forth in these movies represent at least an average player that has decent control over their character, right? Otherwise, it doesn't matter. I mean, if I'm beating somebody with 350k HP, maybe it's their second day being level 100, first time ever playing that class, then putting a 1v1 against that type of person is completely meaningless. It doesn't give you a reflection of the overall balance of the game. When I am pointing out who I'm fighting, this is not to put them on the spot, right? It's not to say, look at how great I am because I beat this person. It's for you to have enough information to come to your own conclusions. That's what I'm doing here. This is the only reason why I'm doing it. This is going to be a 1v1 against an Arcane Mage. I know it says fire here, but he was Arcane when I fought him. I think that'll be obvious when you see the clip. He is not fully geared, right? So he is a little bit short of fully geared, and so is my character, by the way. The most important thing I think here is that his weapons are both epic. So Arena, he has 1753s and he has 2002s. I would say this places him in at least the average level of PvPer that you would run across in the battlegrounds. Now, more meaningful this would be, how is this player done in duels? You have to take this with a grain of salt as well, because you can have someone who inflates their duel win percentage just by fighting people that they outgear, and inexperienced players all the time, and avoid fighting the good, really good geared players. So you can inflate that percentage quite a bit if you want to, and you could actually work at it, go off someplace, nobody can see, and fight under-geared people and boost your win percentage up. So there's no telling whether all these duels are legit or not. He has 469 wins and 383 losses, so he's not a top-level duelist, but he's been winning more than he's been losing. Okay, so let's go on to the fight. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to first just play the unedited fight, right? And then after that, I will look at it and go over my mistakes, and I'll talk about what I did well that helped me win the fight. Interrupted Arcane Blast. Gonna go ahead and stun him here. See what he does. I don't have the rage. I don't have the rage to keep him snared. Okay, I'm gonna have to charge him. Interrupt that. I'll fear him as soon as I get in there. Fearing him. Stunning him. Okay, so let's go through that fight. The one thing I would say here is that this mage maybe took me for granted. Now, I have not played an Arcane Mage, so I cannot talk about, mistakes that he made, things he could have done better. I can just look at the fight and say, okay, here's where I made a mistake. Here's where I did something I think that was good and would be helpful for fighting mages in the future. And I can talk about maybe things where I think he did something well, or maybe he made a mistake. And the only thing I could really say here is that I think he took me for granted. He was very aggressive. He came after me, right? That's his blink. So he used his blink just to get in range to slow me. And I think by doing that, he put himself too close to me, because I am able to turn and get him with a hamstring, right? And then I interrupt his Arcane Blast. Not only did I hit him with hamstring, but I also hit him with Bloodthirst, and I got a crit. So that gave me Raging Blow proc, which I hit him with very nicely. Hits him for 39k on the main hand, right? That doesn't include the offhand damage, which I think is 14k there, it looks like. So that was a really nice hit, but it also enrages me, and I have a little bit of a confession to make, right? The way that Fury Warriors work is that when you're enraged, you get a flat percentage increase to all of your damage, all of it. And for me, that's sitting right around 60%. Well, that includes the Mecha Blast Rocket. So when I'm enraged and I use the Mecha Blast Rocket, the Mecha Blast Rocket also has increased 60% damage. So far, I've seen that crit for, I think, top of 120k, and it will hurt even if it doesn't crit. I'm going to go ahead and front load the rocket onto him. So you see there, I used the rocket and it hits him for 59k damage there. So just in the first few seconds of this fight, you know, I've removed almost half of his health. Now he used Ice Ward there, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to counter that with Stormbolt. And this is a couple reasons why I do this. First of all, I get him soon enough where he's pretty close to, and the idea is that when the root wears off, then I would be in range to snare him with Piercing Howl or with Hamstring. So it's all about, you know, when the root wears off, would I be able to get to him and get him snared without having to use charge? I mean, that's the key. It's not that bad to use Stormbolt here because he is not going to blink out of that, right? He knows not to blink out of that, because if he blinks out of that, then he will get charged. So he's going to sit it. He is going to have to sit it. And this is where I make a big mistake. Right? This is a huge mistake that I make in this fight. This is how you learn. You watch these things and you say, wow, that was really bad. Because what I do here is I have generated rage, and I should have saved that rage for Piercing Howl, because keeping him snared is the most important thing in this fight. It's more important than spending the rage on damage. It's more important than spending the rage on mitigation, like Shield Barrier, provided that my health is high, which it is. But what I do here is I convert that into Absorb using Shield Barrier right there. That was a horrible move. I should have saved it so I could hit him with Piercing Howl, right? See, because when I get out of this, he's still stunned, you see? And I'm in range where I could hit him with Piercing Howl, he would be snared, and then I would be up on him and I would force a blink, you know, without me having to use charge. I lose control of the fight because of that. I lose control of the fight just because of that one thing. Now he still has Ice Ward up, and right there you see he popped Alter Time, and I'm not able to Piercing Howl him. So at this point, that's he heard me in there. It's like, ah man, I can't snare him. And I do remove the third charge there of Ice Ward with my Heroic Toss. So that was the other advantage of using Stormbolt after I get rooted from the first charge of Ice Ward, is that Stormbolt removes another charge of Ice Ward, and then Heroic Toss removes the third. But I've really screwed up here because now he's got distance. He's not snared. I am, and I have to expend a charge. And not only do I have to expend a charge, but I have to expend it before he's used the blink and while he has Alter Time up. This is horrible. It's all about forcing the blink while you can still charge them after the blink. I mean, that is all it is about. So that's why the most important thing to do is keep them snared. Highest priority. I've lost control of this fight. Now fortunately here, you know, he's done no damage to me and his health is low. You know, that is what kept me in this fight, was because he's still having to play defensively. He can't really play offensively. All right, so I charge him there, and of course he blinks, and then I have to charge him again. And when you're fighting someone who has Alter Time, you have to treat it like it's another blink. The thing you really need to do, obviously, to avoid is, you know, you don't want to dump your Blade Storm on them while they have Alter Time up, because they'll use it after you've done all that damage and then laugh at you, right? So as long as you don't dump your Blade Storm into Alter Time, what it really acts like is another blink. And there he uses his Alter Time. Now I'm not sure if he did this on purpose or not intentionally, but when he laid down his Alter Time, he laid it up there and then he moved the fight downhill. So now I am uphill. I've used both my charges. So that was another mistake I should, you know, and I'll talk about this with the Hunter. When you're using your gap closers, use Heroic Leap when you're going downhill, right? And save your charges for when you need to go uphill. So that's a second mistake I made. Second major mistake. I just thought about it right now because I was thinking about a clip I have with the Hunter where I actually talk about this. I should have used Heroic Leap on that first charge because it was downhill. Because right now, yeah, I have Heroic Leap, but you can see here I try to use it, but I can't because it's uphill. So if I'd use Heroic Leap for the first gap closer and then charge to get across on his blink, then at this point in time, I would still be able to charge him. All right, so That was another mistake. I made two major mistakes here. This is where he makes a mistake because he gets greedy. And, this is a weakness of Arcane Mage. He has to cast. So he's casting here, and right here he goes for 2 casts, and this allows me to get in range with my fear. Right, so I hit him with the fear, and then I can get up on him and hit him with Piercing Howl. Right, so now he's snared. Now he breaks that pretty much immediately with Will of the Forsaken, and he throws up Ice Ward. Now he's using Evanesce, so he doesn't have Ice Block, and I get hit by the first Ice Ward proc right there, and I use the same exact strategy. I'm going to counter that with Stormbolt. The Stormbolt removes the second Ice Ward proc, and then I throw a Heroic Toss on him to remove the third. So take a look at where we are. Right, I am rooted, but he is stunned. His Ice Ward charges are all gone. They're all gone. As long as I can get up to him and snare him, right, he is in big trouble because it's all about trying to force his blink before I use my char. Right, and I get up on him, and here I get him with a hamstring. Right, so he made a little bit of a mistake there because he came in a little bit to try to hit me with that Cone of Cold, and he came in close enough where I was able to get him with a hamstring. There's a Bloodthirst proc right there that gives me Enrage. I have a Glyph Enrage, so I move 20% faster. So he's snared and I'm snared, but I'm going to be able to stay right on top of him because of Enrage. And this is why it's so important to keep him snared, because he's going to be eating damage. I mean, even my white auto attack damage is going to be enough to pressure him into a blink, right? It's all about pressuring, forcing that blink, right, before I've used charge. So there I hit him with another Piercing Howl, and you see I'm on him. He can't get away from me. In fact, I'm closing because of the enraged speed, and he has to use his blink. So that's game over right there because my charge is up. And I hit him, right, I reflect that, and I hit him with another Piercing Howl. He uses Ice Ward, and now I use Blade Storm, right, because Blade Storm makes me immune to roots and snares, and the Blade Storm will finish him off. There you go. So you see, I ended this fight. I mean, he was not able to pressure on me. I'm not sure what happened there. With his gear and his experience, I would think that he'd be able to put more pressure on me than that. I'm not sure what happened there. Maybe he had some key cooldowns were gone. Offensive cooldowns or whatnot. I'm really just showing this fight, talk about the mistakes I made, and also to talk about how using Stormbolt and your heroic throw to remove Ice Ward is really key in keeping them snared. Okay, so I have a couple other fights against mages I'm planning on putting up, against frost mages this time. One of them will be against a 2200 rated player, and I think the other player is either 2200 or 2400. Maybe they're both 2200 rated players. Maybe I'll get those out today, maybe not, we'll see. Take care.